I don't think I've ever told this story, but my friend was videotaping, and I started talking to him about her. And then I was done. And I was literally done. Then I talked for about 10, 15 minutes, so I don't know where that footage is.
For 18 years, they were one of Hollywood's most solid couples. Theirs was a love story that seemed destined for a happy ending, playing out against a backdrop of sprawling ranches and red carpet premieres. He was the stoic movie star, the man, who embodied the American ideal in films like Dances with Wolves and Field of Dreams. She was the stunning handbag designer who had captured his heart and, by all accounts, kept his world grounded. Together, Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner built what looked like a perfect life, a fortress of family and love standing strong against the fickle winds of fame. But behind the picture-perfect smiles, a storm was gathering. And when it finally broke, it left a Hollywood icon heartbroken and, in his own words, feeling so bad. This is the story of how Kevin Costner's fairy tale marriage ended with a devastating confession. She had truly broken his heart. The brutal public unraveling of their relationship played out in scathing headlines and cold court documents. At its core, stripped of the millions of dollars and legal jargon, it was a story about one of the most universal human experiences: heartbreak. For the first time, the two-time Oscar winner, known for his tough on-screen personas, was forced to publicly confront the collapse of his world. And the picture that emerged wasn't of a Hollywood titan, but of a man deeply wounded. To really get the depth of the heartbreak, you have to understand the height of the fairy tale. The story of Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner wasn't some fleeting Hollywood romance. It was a love story decades in the making. They first crossed paths on a golf course in the early 90s while Costner was rehearsing for his hit rom-com, Tin Cup. He was at the absolute peak of his fame, married to his college sweetheart, Cindy Silva. That first meeting was just a passing moment, but it seems fate had other plans. It wasn't until 1999 that they reconnected, years after his first marriage ended in a famously expensive divorce settlement rumored to be around $80 million. Costner was single, a bit older, and probably a little wiser about love in the public eye. Baumgartner, a model and up-and-coming handbag designer, had a quiet confidence that completely captivated him. They started dating, and for 4 years, they built a life together. But even this second chance at love hit a major snag. The couple briefly split in 2003. The reported reason? Costner's reluctance to have more children. He was already a father of 4 and wasn't sure he wanted to start all over again. But Christine was crystal clear about what she wanted. As Costner later recalled, she told him, "I'm going to wait for you, but not long. When you come to your senses, come back to me." It was a loving ultimatum, and it worked. The thought of losing her was more terrifying than his fears about expanding his family. He came back. In September 2004, they made it official in a ceremony that was every bit the Hollywood fairy tale. On Costner's sprawling 160-acre ranch in Aspen, a place he calls the Dunbar, they exchanged vows in front of 300 guests. The setting was pure Costner, rustic, majestic, and personal. The groom arrived in a horse-drawn carriage. The bride arrived in a vintage green pickup truck. For 4 days, friends and family celebrated a love that felt both grand and grounded. This marriage was different for Costner. His first had lasted 16 years, and its public ending left him feeling adrift. With Christine, he built a new home base. They welcomed 3 children together, sons Caden and Hayes, and daughter Grace. He often talked about the joy and stability Christine and their children brought him. She was the anchor, the one who managed their busy home life, once describing herself as the family's Uber driver. He praised her for creating a sanctuary for them all. For 18 years, they appeared to be the perfect team, building a life that seemed to be the happy ending he'd been looking for. No one, least of all Costner, could have imagined how brutally it would all come crashing down. The beginning of the end came out of nowhere. On May 1st, 2023, Christine Baumgartner filed for divorce, citing the standard sterile phrase, irreconcilable differences. But the statement from Costner's rep painted a much more telling picture. It read, "It is with great sadness that circumstances beyond his control have transpired, which have resulted in Mr. Costner having to participate in a dissolution of marriage action." The wording was deliberate. Circumstances beyond his control. Having to participate. These aren't the words of a man who's mutually uncoupling. They're the words of a man who feels like he's been sucker punched. The narrative was set from day one. Kevin Costner was blindsided. For the public, the news was a total shock. Just a few months earlier, Costner had been posting happy videos from home. There were no tabloid whispers of trouble. But behind the scenes, the foundation had been cracking. Insiders began pointing to one main source of friction: Costner's all-consuming passion project, the epic 4-part Western film series, Horizon, an American Saga. This was a dream he'd been chasing. Since 1988, long before Dances with Wolves, it was finally happening. And Costner was all in. Directing, co-writing, starring, and even pouring millions of his own money into it. Reports suggested Christine had given him an ultimatum: choose Horizon or choose their family. She was tired of his long absences and his life revolving around production schedules. The date of separation was listed as April 11th, 2023. 2 days after the filing, Christine was photographed in Santa Barbara, her wedding ring already gone. The message was clear. She was done. For Costner, this wasn't just the end of his marriage. It was the start of a 9-month legal nightmare. The man who fiercely guarded his privacy was about to have his life laid bare for the world to see. That initial statement from his rep was the first clue this wouldn't be an amicable split. It was the stance of a man reeling from a blow he never saw coming. As the divorce proceedings kicked off, the wall around Kevin Costner's private life came crumbling down. What lay behind it was a man in serious pain. This was clearly more than a legal dispute. It was a deep, personal agony. Outside a Santa Barbara courthouse in September 2023, looking exhausted, he spoke to a reporter from Access Hollywood. When asked about the divorce, his voice was heavy with emotion. "It feels so bad," he said, struggling for words. "We're talking about somebody I love on the other side. I just can't." When the reporter asked if he still had love for Christine, his answer was instant and absolute. Of course. It was a moment of raw vulnerability. He wasn't a movie star. He was just a man with a broken heart. Months later, with the legal battle over but the emotional scars still fresh, he opened up again on CBS Mornings. He described the realization that his marriage was over as a crushing moment. "It's powerful. It hurt," he admitted, "but I go forward." That became his mantra: move forward for the sake of his kids. He explained, "I have no choice. My children are looking at me so I can't wilt like a daisy. You just do it. You just keep talking. You keep coaching the kids. You keep interested in what they're interested in. I had to." The narrative that Christine was unhappy with his work schedule on Yellowstone and his dedication to Horizon painted a picture of a man being punished for his passion. He'd poured his heart, soul, and a reported $38 million of his own money into his film series. Having that passion cited as the reason for the implosion of his family must have been a particularly cruel twist. The heartbreak was made worse by the public nature of the fight. It was a painful irony. The man who built a career on crafting epic American stories was now living a personal tragedy in the most public way possible. "I've had an incredibly unusual, and for the most part, beautiful life," he reflected. "I've taken some really big bites out of life, and life has taken some really big ones out of me, and I've never let it harden me, and I'm not going to." This was Kevin Costner's confession, a painful admission of a man who still loved the woman leaving him and was terrified of the impact on his children. The heartbreak quickly gave way to a brutal and public legal war. This personal tragedy morphed into a fight over money, property, and their life together. At the center of it was an ironclad prenuptial agreement they'd signed back in 2004. Having gone through an $80 million divorce once, Costner was prepared. The prenup stated that if they divorced, Christine would get a settlement and have to vacate his properties within 30 days. That last clause ignited the first firestorm. Christine Baumgartner refused to leave their magnificent oceanfront compound in Carpinteria, California, valued at as much as $145 million. She argued she wouldn't move until Costner met her financial demands, namely, her staggering request for child support. The standoff became a national headline. A judge eventually sided with Costner, ordering Christine to vacate the property. By the end of July 2023, the next front in their war was even more explosive: child support. Christine, a stay-at-home mom with no personal income, initially requested an unbelievable $248,000 per month for their 3 children. Her lawyers argued the sum was needed to maintain the children in their accustomed lifestyle, detailing a life of private jets, lavish vacations, and exclusive clubs. In one memorable argument, her team claimed that luxury was in the children's DNA at this point. Costner's team fired back, calling the request inappropriate and alleging it was mostly for Christine's personal expenses, like plastic surgery. The back and forth was vicious. At one point, Costner's lawyers accused Christine of waging a relentless jihad against Kevin's character, a statement so harsh it reportedly made her cry in court. During a hearing, Costner took the stand himself, testifying about his finances after leaving Yellowstone. When accused of hiding money, he dryly remarked, "Oh good, we'll have to have a treasure hunt to find it." Ultimately, in September 2023, the judge ruled decisively. The court ordered Costner to pay $63,209 per month in child support, a tiny fraction of what his ex-wife had demanded. It was a huge legal victory, but one that came at an immense personal cost. The final battle was a challenge to the prenup itself. But the agreement had a powerful clause. If Christine challenged it and lost, she would forfeit her entire settlement and could be on the hook for his legal fees. Faced with that gamble, the fight fizzled out. The couple reached a settlement, and the divorce was finalized in February 2024. The war was over. With the divorce finalized in February 2024, a fragile peace settled in. Both Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner began the tough process of building new separate lives. For Costner, the path forward was all about work and family. His focus was on his 3 kids, Caden, Hayes, and Grace, and his cinematic obsession, Horizon. Professionally, he poured his energy into the project that had been at the center of the storm. Horizon became his refuge. He'd famously mortgaged a significant portion of his prized Santa Barbara waterfront property to help finance the film, a move that he said sent his accountant into a conniption fit. It was a massive gamble. But the project hit a major snag when the first chapter was released to disappointing box office numbers, a commercial blow that reportedly put him under significant financial strain. Amid all this, the rumor mill started churning. In late 2023, photos emerged of Costner looking cozy with singer-songwriter Jewel during a charity trip to Necker Island. For months, both were quiet on the intense speculation. Finally, in June 2024, Costner set the record straight on The Howard Stern Show. "No, Jewel and I are friends. We've never gone out ever," he said plainly. He explained they were on a trip with a group of people and the romance narrative was completely false. "She's special and I don't want these rumors to ruin our friendship, because that's what we have," he said. While the Jewel romance was a bust, Christine Baumgartner also began to move on. She was romantically linked to financier Josh Connor, a former friend and neighbor of the couple, with sources saying the relationship started after her split from Kevin. For Kevin Costner, the aftermath of the divorce is a landscape of complex challenges. He's a man healing from a deep wound, a father guiding his children through a tough time, and an artist fighting for his creative vision. The fairy tale is over, and now all that's left is the quiet, uncertain horizon of a new life. The story of Kevin Costner's divorce is a powerful reminder that behind the headlines are real people dealing with pain and resilience. What are your thoughts on this very public split? Do you think the pressures of Hollywood make lasting love impossible? Let us know in the comments. And for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. In the end, the story of Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner is a modern Hollywood tragedy, a great love that crumbled under the weight of ambition, expectation, and the harsh glare of the public eye. For nearly 2 decades, they built a world that seemed untouchable. But in the end, the chasm between them became too wide to cross. Kevin Costner's confession wasn't about wrongdoing, but about profound hurt. His candid admissions of a crushing moment stripped away the movie star facade and revealed the vulnerable man underneath. He was a husband blindsided by the end of his marriage and a father who had to find the strength to carry on for his kids. He now stands at a crossroads, pouring his heart and fortune into his passion